Something has been off about Phil Mickelson for a while now. Not the gambling stories, not the LIV move, something deeper, something that doesn't quite fit the image we all grew up watching. You remember the smile, the fist pumps, the family man who always had time for fans. That Phil, he's been disappearing for years, and now a bombshell report has pulled back the curtain on what's really been happening behind closed doors. A longtime friend finally spoke. An ex-tour wife broke her silence, and Phil's own camp is fighting back. But here's the thing. Nobody's actually answering the question that matters most. What broke this man? Because this isn't just about bad decisions or career moves. This is about a pattern of behavior that's destroyed relationships, shattered reputations, and left one of golf's most beloved figures completely isolated. The truth is darker than anyone expected, and the heartbreaking part? It involves something nobody saw coming. Before we get into it, here's my take. I've followed Phil's entire career, watched every major win, defended him when others turned their backs. But after reading this report, I genuinely don't know how to feel anymore. What about you? Do you separate the man from the golfer? Or does the man ultimately define everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want real conversations about the tour, hit subscribe. We're building something different here. Now let's get into what really happened to Phil Mickelson. Because the story you think you know, that's only half of it. So let's talk about what actually came out. June 26, 2026. That's the date everything changed. Skratch Golf dropped an investigative piece that didn't just scratch the surface of Phil's problems. It blew the whole thing wide open. And the source? Someone who knows Phil better than almost anyone. A longtime friend who finally decided to stop protecting him. Here's the quote that's been rattling around the golf world ever since. Phil does everything for the dopamine. Whether it's the way he plays golf, all the gambling, chasing chicks on the road, going to LIV, it's all based on this very deep need to have action at all times. Read that again. Dopamine. Not money, not trophies, not legacy. Dopamine. The chemical that gets released when you take a risk. When you chase something that might destroy you. When you can't sit still because stillness feels like death. Think about what that actually means. Every decision Phil made, every gamble, every move that shocked the golf world. It wasn't calculated, it wasn't strategic. It was a man feeding an addiction he couldn't control. And here's what makes this genuinely unsettling. This isn't a new pattern. This isn't something that happened after LIV or after the gambling scandals broke. This is who Phil has always been. The golf world just didn't want to see it. Because the smile was so disarming. The family photos were so perfect. The shots he pulled off were so magical that nobody wanted to ask what was happening when the cameras turned off. But the people closest to him knew. They've always known. The report goes deeper too. It lays out a pattern stretching back years. Gambling debts that would make your head spin. Relationships destroyed. People who loved Phil walking away because they couldn't watch anymore. And here's the thing that should worry every golf fan watching this. The friend who spoke to Skratch didn't do it to hurt Phil. They did it because they're scared for him. Because they've watched this pattern destroy everything he built, and nobody in his inner circle is willing to stop it. So when you hear people say, this came out of nowhere, or Phil was blindsided by all this, that's not true. The people who knew him best saw this coming for years. They just couldn't stop it. But what happened next is where the story gets even darker. Because the gambling wasn't the worst of it. The relationships Phil destroyed along the way, that's where the real damage is. You want to understand the real cost of Phil's downfall? Don't look at his bank account. Don't look at LIV. Look at the people who used to be in his life. The ones who aren't anymore. The ones who walked away and never looked back. Start with Bones Mackay. 25 years. That's how long Bones carried Phil's bag. Through every major win. Through every heartbreaking near miss. Through the 2013 Open Championship where Phil played arguably the greatest round of his life. They were more than player and caddy. They were brothers. And now, they don't speak. 25 years of friendship. Just gone. No dramatic public falling out. No press conference. Just silence. The kind of silence that says more than any argument ever could. Think about what that means. 25 years. That's longer than most marriages. Longer than most careers. Bones wasn't just an employee. He was Phil's right hand. His confidant. The guy who knew Phil better than anyone on the course. And now they don't even say hello when they pass each other. Then there's Billy Walters. If you don't know the name, you need to. Walters was once a father figure to Phil. The kind of mentor who could call him out when nobody else would. The kind of relationship that goes beyond golf, beyond business. The kind that actually matters. When Walters got caught up in a 2016 insider trading case, he needed Phil to testify on his behalf. One phone call, one statement. That's all it would have taken. Phil refused. The relationship ended right there. A father figure lost because Phil wouldn't stand up for him. Let that sink in. A man who once guided Phil, who protected him, who treated him like family. And when that man needed help, Phil turned away. Not because he couldn't help, because he chose not to. And Gregory Silvera, Phil's stockbroker, the man who handled a $2.75 million gambling debt transfer for Mickelson. Silvera went to prison. Phil faced no charges. But that debt, that $2.75 million, it was a transfer for gambling losses. Not investing, not a business deal. Gambling. Someone else went to prison. Phil walked away. Here's one that really stings. Phil is no longer welcome at the Farms, the Bridges, or the Madison Club. Not because he left, not because he moved, because the Madison Club reportedly asked him to leave in 2021, and it wasn't even Phil who handled it. It was Amy, Phil's wife. She demanded it through the family's wealth management firm. Think about that for a second. Your own wife has to step in and tell your country club to kick you out because you've embarrassed the family so badly that staying is no longer an option. That would have been enough to destroy most people's reputations. But what came next made everything before it look minor. Pat Perez's ex-wife, Ashley, has stepped forward, and what she's alleging is disturbing. According to Ashley, during a 2015 tournament, Phil Mickelson showed her an explicit photo and made an unwanted advance. She says the incident happened in front of other people, and that nobody did anything about it, because of what she calls a culture of silence. Her exact words are worth repeating. There is a culture of silence that keeps women from coming forward. That line alone should stop you in your tracks. Because what she's describing isn't just one incident. It's a system where powerful men are protected, where witnesses look the other way, where victims know that speaking up means destroying their own lives while the men walk away unscathed. Days after her initial statement, Ashley posted again on Instagram. She wrote that she will rise up and stand next to the millions of women who have been silenced. Let's be real about what this means. Ashley Perez isn't some random person making accusations. She was married to a PGA Tour player. She moved in the same circles. She knew the culture. She lived it. And she's saying that culture protected Phil at her expense. And here's what makes this particularly painful for golf fans who grew up loving Phil. The man who was supposed to be a family man, a role model, the smiling face of a gentleman's sport. This is who he was when nobody was watching. The contrast between the public image and the private reality is genuinely jarring. You don't want to believe it, because believing it means accepting that the Phil you rooted for wasn't real, that the smile was hiding something, that the fist pumps were covering up a darkness you never saw coming. But before you make up your mind, you need to hear how Phil's team responded, and what they said might surprise you. Of course, Phil's team has a response. Through his attorney, a spokesperson said, "Some of the allegations circulating about Mr. Mickelson are false, and others revisit mistakes he has already acknowledged, publicly or privately." Then this part, stacking the disputed claims next to the ones he has owned, does not make them credible. It's a careful statement. Notice what they didn't say. They didn't deny everything. They said some allegations are false. Others revisit acknowledged mistakes. That phrasing tells you everything you need to know. There are mistakes. Plural. Multiple. And some of them have been privately acknowledged. But here's the part that should make you think twice. If these allegations are so easily dismissed, why hasn't Phil defended himself publicly? Why has he gone quiet? Why is his lawyer speaking through statements instead of Phil standing behind a microphone and saying, "None of this is true"? In the court of public opinion, silence is rarely a winning strategy. And Phil has been silent for months now. Is it because he's protecting his family? Is it because he's been advised not to speak? Or is it because he knows that defending himself would only bring more scrutiny to the things he can't deny? And that's where we need to talk about the part that actually makes this heartbreaking. Not the allegations, not the scandals, not the relationships destroyed, something else entirely. Earlier this year, Phil missed the start of the LIV season. Then he withdrew from the Masters. The official reason? A family health matter. That's all they said. Family health matter. Vague. Purposefully vague. The kind of statement designed to give someone privacy when they're going through something terrible. The kind of statement that usually means someone is sick and they don't want the world knowing about it. But then details started to emerge, and what we learned changes everything. It wasn't Phil who was unwell. It wasn't Amy. It was one of their children. Let that land for a moment. Phil Mickelson, the man who has been publicly humiliated, accused of inappropriate behavior, exiled from the sport he once dominated, watched his reputation crumble in real time. He missed the Masters because one of his children was sick, and he hasn't spoken publicly about it since. That's not spin. That's not PR. That's a father protecting his child while the world tears him apart. The contrast is devastating. On one side, you have the allegations, the gambling, the inappropriate behavior, the broken relationships. On the other side, you have a father who pulled out of the Masters, one of the most important tournaments in the world, because his child needed him. Which version is the real Phil? Maybe both. Maybe that's what makes this so heartbreaking. The same man who made terrible choices is also the man who would drop everything for his family. The same man who destroyed relationships is also the man whose family is circling the wagons to protect him. The human mind can hold both truths. The heart struggles with it. And here's the thing that should make you sit back and think. Phil hasn't spoken about any of this. Not the report, not the allegations, not the family health crisis. Nothing. He's gone completely quiet. And the people who used to defend him? They're not speaking either. That silence is telling you something. But what happens next might be even sadder than everything you've already heard. So where does this leave Phil? Not with a dramatic public breakup, not with a definitive verdict, with something quieter, and in some ways, sadder. The golf world won't issue a dramatic condemnation. They don't need to. They'll just let things fade. Sponsors won't renew. Deals will quietly lapse. The PGA Tour re-entry pathway that was supposedly open to LIV defectors, it appears to be closing for Phil specifically. Not through an official ban, through silence, through inaction, through the quiet understanding that his time has passed. Friends who used to defend him aren't speaking up anymore. His defenders have gone quiet. His inner circle has become smaller and smaller. The people who know him best are either staying silent or speaking to reporters instead of cameras. And Phil himself? He's gone quieter than ever before. No public defenses, no heartfelt apologies, no tearful interviews. Just silence and the occasional lawyer statement. This is what a slow-motion exile looks like. No dramatic exit, no final press conference, just a gradual fade. A quiet disappearance from the sport he once dominated, from the conversations, from the headlines, from everything that once defined him. The sponsors will let their contracts expire without renewal. The endorsements will dry up. The invites to events will stop coming. Not because anyone officially banned him, because it's easier to just let him fade away. Because nobody wants to be the one who officially closes the door on a legend. But they'll close it quietly, slowly, and without anyone noticing until it's already done. And maybe that's the most heartbreaking part of all. Not the scandals, not the allegations, not the gambling, but the loneliness of it. The isolation, the realization that the people who used to love him, who used to defend him, who used to be in his corner, they're all gone now. He's surrounded by people, sure, but how many of them are actually friends? How many of them would stand up for him when it matters? How many of them are still there because they genuinely care versus how many are there because they're paid to be? Those are hard questions, and the answers might be even harder. But here's the question I really want to ask you, and I want you to think about this carefully before you answer. Does Phil Mickelson's legacy survive all of this? Do you separate the man from the golfer, or does the man ultimately define everything? Here's my honest take. I grew up watching Phil. I cheered for him. I defended him when others didn't. And I genuinely don't know how to feel anymore. The golfer is one of the greatest ever. The man, I'm not so sure, but that's just my opinion. I want to know what you think. Do you still root for Phil after everything you've just heard? Or is this the moment where you draw the line? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you made it this far, you're exactly the kind of golf fan we're building this channel for. Hit that subscribe button. We've got more real conversations coming. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.